After my husband died, my son showed up at my doorstep with his wife, and before I could even offer them tea or ask how their drive was, he made a declaration that punched the air right out of my lungs. "She's moving in to teach you how to run this house." I remember standing there, staring at them, unable to process how I went from grieving widow to some sort of incompetent old woman in need of supervision. Tell me honestly, was I wrong for how I handled what happened next? Would you have stayed quiet if your own child tried to replace you in your home? I didn't even know how to respond at first. My husband had only been gone for 3 months. I was still waking up in the middle of the night expecting him to be beside me. His slippers were still by the bed. His jacket still hung on the back of the dining chair, the one he always used. The house still smelled like him, his aftershave, the peppermint gum he always chewed, the faint scent of engine oil from his workshop. And into this raw, aching space, my son walked in acting like I was incapable of taking care of myself, like I was some helpless old woman drifting away without a keeper. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was the look on my daughter-in-law's face, smug, victorious, like she had finally won some secret battle I didn't even know we were fighting. But let me start from the beginning because none of this happened overnight. My son, Daniel, had always been the golden child, the one everyone said would go far in life. And he did, I won't deny that. He was smart, handsome, successful. But with all that success came a sort of distance from family, from responsibilities, and eventually from me. He rarely visited once he got married, and the woman he married, Sasha, always had this air about her, as if she was too good for us. She came from money, real money, the kind that buys silence and status. My husband never liked her attitude, but he tried, we both tried, because she was Daniel's choice. But Sasha never tried back. When my husband got sick, Daniel visited only twice during the whole ordeal. Twice, once when his father first went into the hospital, and once after the surgery failed and we got the news no wife ever wants to hear. Even then, he stayed only an hour, claimed he had a flight to catch, and told me to stay strong, in that dismissive way people do when they don't want to carry any emotional weight. Sasha didn't come either time. She sent flowers, as if flowers would fill the empty seat beside me. As if flowers would help me when I went home to an empty house with no one to hold me while I cried. After the funeral, the days blurred together. I managed the house like I always did. I cooked. I cleaned. I took care of the garden. I even repainted the living room to give myself something to do. I wasn't spiraling. I wasn't breaking down. I was grieving, yes, but grief isn't the same as being incapable. But Daniel kept calling, asking weird questions like, "Are you eating enough? And do you remember to pay your bills? And maybe you should move into assisted living." I told him I was fine, truly fine, and I thought he heard me, and then came that morning. They arrived unannounced, no call. No warning. I heard a car door slam, and when I peeked out the window, I saw their suitcases. Suitcases. That's when my stomach dropped. When they walked in, Sasha didn't even hug me. She gave me this cold, assessing look, as if she was inspecting the house, inspecting me. And Daniel, with barely a greeting, launched into his speech about how Sasha would be living here now to help me. Help me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask what on earth gave them the right to dictate my life. But I was so stunned I just stood there, listening as Sasha walked around my living room, running her fingers along my furniture, nodding to herself as though she already owned the place. She said things like, "Oh, we'll need to declutter this, and these curtains make the room feel small, and I'll reorganize the kitchen. No offense, but it's outdated. No offense." Everything she said was offensive. My kitchen was the heart of my home. My husband built those wooden cabinets himself. Every scratch on the countertop had a story. Every picture frame on the wall held decades of memories. And yet here she was, treating it like some fixer-upper she was flipping for profit. But nothing prepared me for what she did next. I found her in my bedroom. She had opened my closet and was pulling out clothes, placing them on the bed like items to be donated. She turned to me, smiling like she was doing me a favor, and said, "We should make space. I'll be taking the second closet, so we'll need to get rid of some of your things. You don't need so many clothes anyway." I felt heat rush to my face. My chest tightened. How dare she walk into the most private space in my home and decide she could take over. I told her firmly she had no right to touch my things, and she rolled her eyes at me. Actually rolled her eyes. Then she said words that made something inside me snap. "Daniel said you might get emotional, but don't worry. I'm here now. I'll take care of everything." Take care of everything? She was acting like I was losing my mind, like I was incompetent, like I was a burden. The more I tried to explain that I didn't need help, the more patronizing she became. Daniel kept saying things like, "Mom, just let her handle things, and you need someone here, and we made this decision for your own good." A decision? They made a decision about my life without even asking me. I could feel my blood boiling, but I kept my voice calm. I told them that if they were planning to stay, it would be as guests, not as tyrants, but they didn't listen. By the second day, Sasha was giving orders like she owned the place. She changed the Wi-Fi password. She told me I couldn't drive anymore because it wasn't safe. She tried to put me on a meal plan she found online because older adults shouldn't eat heavy food. She even unplugged the TV in the living room and moved it into the guest room, so she and Daniel could have their own space. But the moment that tipped everything over the edge happened on the third evening. I walked into the kitchen and found her on the phone with her mother, telling her how she was renovating the old house, and how once everything is settled, they'll finally convince Mom to sell and move somewhere easier. Sell, that house wasn't just a house. It was where I lived with my husband for 38 years. It was where Daniel grew up. It was where every memory lived, and they wanted to sell it so they could buy something more modern. That's when it clicked. They didn't come to help me. They came to manage me, control me, push me out of my own life, and they thought I would just quietly accept it. That I was too weak, too lost, too grief-stricken to fight back. And here's where I want your opinion. Because this was the moment I had enough. So that's the situation I was in. And I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause for a second and tell me, what would you have done if your own child and their spouse tried to take over your life and push you out of your home? Would you have confronted them, kicked them out, stayed silent? I really want to know. When I walked back into the kitchen, I felt calmer than I had in days. A strange kind of clarity settled over me. They weren't going to leave unless I made them. So I called Daniel and Sasha into the living room. They came in with irritated expressions, as if I was interrupting their busy schedule of taking over my life. I looked at them, really looked. My son wasn't the boy I raised. He wasn't the man his father hoped he would become. He stood there with his arms crossed, waiting for me to accept my place. Sasha had that same smug look she'd worn when she first arrived, the look of someone who thought she had already won. And that's when I calmly told them the truth. You both need to leave, tonight. Daniel laughed, thinking I was joking. Sasha smirked and said, "You're being dramatic." But when I handed them their packed suitcases, yes, I had quietly packed their things while they were busy bossing me around. Their faces changed. Daniel's voice rose immediately. "Mom, you can't just throw us out." But I could, and I did. I told them I had already spoken to my lawyer earlier that afternoon. I had confirmed that the house was solely in my name, that no one could make decisions about it except me, and that if they tried to pressure me into signing anything or giving up control, it would legally be considered elder coercion. I also told Daniel that if they tried to come back without my invitation, I would not hesitate to get law enforcement involved. Sasha went pale, Daniel shifted from angry to embarrassed in seconds. They sputtered, protested, tried to guilt trip me, but I stood firm. I told them I loved them, but I would not be treated like a child or an obstacle in my own home. And then I opened the door and waited. They left. The silence after they drove away felt like oxygen after days of suffocation. I sat down on the couch, the same couch where my husband and I used to drink coffee every morning, and for the first time since his passing, I felt something other than grief. I felt proud that I defended myself, proud that I didn't let anyone, family or not, strip away my dignity. In the weeks that followed, Daniel called a few times, mostly to argue, to say I overreacted, that I hurt his wife's feelings, but I held my ground. Eventually, he stopped calling, and while that hurt, a different kind of healing began, the kind where I learned to stand alone again. Now I've started joining community groups, tending my garden again, even taking a cooking class. My home feels like my home again. Peaceful, safe, filled with love and memories, not control and manipulation. And now that I've told you everything, tell me, was I wrong? Because I don't think I was. And if you've ever been pushed aside in your own life, I hope my story gives you the courage to reclaim your space too. Like this video if you were on my side, subscribe for more stories like this, and definitely share your final thoughts in the comments. I always read them. I'll see you all in the next story.